Hi, my name is Theophilus Zhuang. I am a Canadian-born Chinese, and I am a father of two, a 7-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. I live in Maple Ridge, Canada, and my life story starts. I'll start from when I was born. I was born in a Bible college. My parents were going to school there, studying to be ministers and pastors. And the town that I was born in, I was the only one. I was one of the first Chinese to be born there. It's a really small place. The school is called Prairie Bible Institute. And so when they graduated at the age of 3, we moved over to Venezuela, Caracas. And that was where my parents served for 7 years in Venezuela. So at an early age, all I knew was the church. All I knew was, just growing up in the church. And so growing up in a foreign country like Venezuela, there was a lot of racism, and so I was faced with a lot of this attack on my personality and my identity, and so I was very lost, especially in church with pastors as parents. It was I wasn't like everybody else in the church, right? And so it was really hard for me to find people to resonate with, and so it was really lost upbringing. Me and my brother, he's 2 years younger than I am, and we were constantly pushing back against that resistance of needing to be like a perfect child, and didn't really understand this belief and the faith, and so it was a really lost time for me. After 7 years, came back to Canada, and even though I am a Canadian, it was very easy to be lost again because we didn't know what lifestyle or what kind of culture was, and so Canada life was really foreign to us, and so spent the next majority of our time in Canada. That those early years were really just trying to find our home church and where God was calling us in. So my dad eventually ended up at a Chinese church pastoring then, and it was again a very lost time for us. We were mainly at church because they invited, they would take us, and my parents, I guess you could say, made the mistake of making church more about McDonald's breakfast, which is really, really strange. And the story behind that is, to get us to wake up in the morning, he'd be like, "Hey, let's go have McDonald's breakfast," and it was just a really surface level experience for us. We didn't enjoy church whatsoever. There was a bit of falling out with the church, and the journey was even more complicated from that point on. Members of the church were attacking me and my brother, and they wouldn't attack my dad face on, and they just do these underhanded tactics to attack us as children. And so over time, once I graduated high school, ready to make my own decisions, I was wondering why I was even at church. Why was I even there? Noticed that I was just there for friends, and so I kind of said, I don't want to be here anymore, and so I underwent my own prodigal son journey. Got involved with drugs and alcohol, and involved with the wrong people. But God was always there. He was always taking care of us and taking care of me, and was very patient. Like the father in the story, just sitting there, looking at the horizon, waiting to see me come back over. And eventually, I made my way back. Had friends that were inviting me back to church, and started slowly to make my way back. As once when you've grown up that way, and in that kind of environment, it just never really leaves you. Obviously, that can't be said for everybody, but for me, it was certainly true, and I thank the Lord for that. My journey back was really one of having done all these negative things and all these bad things and all this sin. Like how could anybody love me? And it really took people, a specific team actually in China. They came out, and they were there to do some kind of ministry, and they accepted me. They took me in, and they showed me Jesus's love, and I was like, wow, like it was a great example of that kind of just of that love, and so that was really where I started to make my journey back. Even then, I was still dealing with a lot of demons, a lot of things that were holding me down, and sin that I was not willing to let go of. And so over time, it really required me to, as you learn, is that it's a journey, and what got you here isn't going to get you there. And so even up until COVID, it was like realizing that I no longer had to play church. I was just going through the motions, and once I was in that space of being at my home by myself and not able to go out and be in communion with other believers, that I realized that I needed that community. I needed God, and that I wasn't going to be able to do this all on my own. And so now that I am I recently transitioned into another career path, and more aligned to my purpose. And God has really placed two desires within me, like two dreams in my life. And one was to be a police officer, or to be a present father. And I chose to be a present father. And so in that decision, I also became an entrepreneur. Through 6 years of entrepreneurism, God transitioned me into something that was more aligned to my purpose and my calling. And I'm coming to life in everything that I do. And so now I serve fathers, creating community for them, right? Growing up, always being lost, it was easy for me to, blend in with other people and not accept who I am. And so now I'm building community for the lost. I have my own Facebook community of fathers that I meet with regularly on Thursdays, and it's really just a space, holding space for them to show up authentically and to be themselves and talk about struggles, and to allow brothers in Christ to shine a light to the dark world that we're in. Fatherhood is one of those areas that is quite a lonely journey, and not a lot of people have people to turn to that resonate and know how to understand what they're going through. And so through that journey, God has allowed me to write a book and to start a podcast for that community. And the name comes from the identity that I got from God. Is I underwent Jamie Winship's identity exchange, and in that exercise, God called me noble. And if in certain Bible translations, Theophilus in the Bible is known as noble Theophilus, which to me was it was beautiful. And it was a moment that I shared with the Lord that, wow, this is what you call me after everything that I've done. This is who you call me. And the beautiful thing about that is that in the prodigal son journey, in the prodigal son's parable, is that when the son comes over the hill, and the father sees him, he runs out with the cloak and with the signet ring, puts it on his hand and the cloak on his back. And even though the son is in this place of, I'll be a slave, Father, in your household. I'd rather be a slave than eat with the pigs. And the father just sees him for who he is. You are still in the family. Their identity has not changed based on what you have done. And, let's celebrate. Let's kill the fattened calf and let's celebrate your return, because my son who was lost has now been found. And that's so beautiful. I think that that is a direct representation of my story, and now get to do that for others. Always finding people who are out who are out and lost, and feeling what they're feeling and bringing them home is really what I am about now. And so that is my story. The journey hasn't ended yet. I still got plenty of life to live, but that is my testimony. Thank you very much.